live. We're just getting ready to get started. My guest is here, and we are definitely looking forward to giving you an awesome show today. Welcome all to Cacoa Tea, and you're just tuning in. A warm Sunday afternoon to you wherever you are. I'm trying to literally bring in the spring. So you see my attire? I'm springing. I'm springing because it's freezing. My guest is here. And before I introduce her, I just want to say hi to her. You know, I'm not going to say who she is. Of course, everybody knows who she is based on the link. But I have a lot of, we call in lingo vary, you know. I like to make a style out of how I introduce my guest. So for now, we'll just say hi. So she's lounging like she's on the beach. She is
Oh my goodness.
She is in Toronto in the cold, so don't let that fool you. and she's trying to stay warm like all of us. It is spring, and we still have close to 0-degree weather. But needless to say, we're happy to be alive, and we're happy to I'm specifically happy to bring you another Cacoa Tea production, another Cacoa Tea show. And I have a beautiful woman here with me, and I want to say good afternoon to my guest. I'm still not calling her name. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome. It's so good to have you here on the show with me this afternoon. I'll get into a little bit of background as to how I actually connected with my guests, which is what I always do. I always say how I know my guests, how we've met, if we have, if not. It's funny because this weekend seems to be a weekend of guests that I've never met. But needless to say, we're gonna have a good time.
We go way back in spirits. Way back in spirits.
Girl, let me tell you. I first of all just want to tell all the viewers, if you're just locking on, I like to encourage you to share the link so other folks can actually get in on the conversation along with you, and feel free to ask your questions. Like I always say every single time, the guests can choose whether or not to answer your questions. I tend to pop up the questions on the screen so you can see them, and the guests will answer, and we'll keep the conversation nice and going. But I also want to encourage you to share the link. I want to say a special good afternoon to my family, who has been super, super supportive. They're viewing right now, and they're downstairs, but they're viewing. And I want to say good afternoon to Sasha and Miss Justina and Claire and Jojo and my baby Jay. I've never actually told the public his name yet, so one of these days they'll know his name. And,
really, you haven't said his name yet?
No, I haven't told the world his name as yet. A few people know his name, but not too many people. But I want to say, good afternoon to all of them downstairs who are tuned in right now. And today I want to say special welcome to another Black entrepreneur beauty who's joining us right here in Toronto. And she has a very interesting story, and I'm so happy that she chose to come on the show, and she can share with you and give you some insight. She studied biotechnology, but always had a passion for art. After purchasing her apartment, she started decorating her 800 square foot space, which gained her popularity through her social media blog. She's the owner of 800 square foot, an entire interior designing company, and a shop called The Apartment, which is a shoppable space. I want to know about that shoppable space in downtown Toronto. And she is also a regular on the #1 daytime show, Canada's City Line, and recently featured on Flair magazine. Welcome the beautiful Nikki Onile. Hello,
Hi,
Nikki.
guys. Hi, Jael. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am so, so happy to have you here.
Thanks
I'm going
so
to tell.
much for having me on your show.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm going to tell people how I know you and how we met. So since giving birth to my son, I have been watching a lot of daytime TV, and I see this black beautiful girl with big eyes, on Canada's City Line, Tracy Moore show, and she just actually celebrated her birthday. She happens to be an Aquarian like myself, and just my spirit just said to me, send her a message. It's a very stalkerish move. It is a very stalker. So I went. I'm looking at her on TV, and I just Googled her name. As a matter of fact, they did not show your name again during the segment. They only showed it once. So I kind of missed the spelling, and I kept typing in Nicky. I'm looking, and I'm like, you know what?
Right.
I went on City Line and I researched. I looked like I literally had to look through different programs to find her. And then I found her and I was like, okay, here goes the stalker. I found her on Facebook and I'm like, I'm going to send her a message and just hope that she responds. And guess what? She responded, which
I'm surprised you even found me, because my name is Nike, which is like Nike.
Dude,
and my last name is Onile, which is like online. So I'm surprised. Good skills.
Dude.
Good searching skills.
Dude, I searched you out, and I didn't even think she would respond. I didn't think you would have responded. And you responded in like less than no time. And she's like, oh, here's my number. You can call me. And then I'm like, well, okay. And we spoke, and you wanted to know where my headspace was. And the show hadn't launched yet. I hadn't even started. It was just still in, production mode and, getting my guests organized and stuff. And I like to prepare before I just throw things out there sometimes. And I sent you the link and you booked the space, the time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting so excited, having you on the show. And this is how I actually met my guests. So it's an interesting story. And I'm so happy to have you here with me on Cacoa. And I want to know, who is Nikki Onile?
Who is Nikki? I'm a lot of things. And I guess it depends who's asking. But I guess when it comes to this, am I echoing? It sounds like I'm echoing. Hold on. Let me just reduce my volume. Okay. I'd have to say I'm an artist. That's probably the more encompassing description of me. But yeah, I'm an artist. Yeah, that's the simplest way I could put it.
She's like, yeah, I'm an artist. You did study biotechnology. Why did you go into biotechnology and all of a sudden now you're an artist?
I'm a designer, an artist. You know what? I grew up in a traditional African family. So anything in the arts was a hobby. I could never imagine waking up and telling my mom that, hey, I'm going to be an artist or I'm going to be a designer. She'd be like, a designer? What is that? With her African accent, I
was about to tell it to me exactly how she would say it.
Yeah, so me telling my parents that I wanted to be in my culture, like there's few, I'm sure in a lot of cultures, it's not just African or Caribbean cultures, but there's few careers that are acceptable. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer. That's pretty much it. Maybe an accountant. And then that's pretty much it. Everything else is kind of like, So following anything artistic, although I've always been artistic, even growing up, I remember I was always painting or drawing or doing something. So my family always knew I was artistic. But to, say that I want to now pursue that as a career, that wasn't really something that was acceptable or encouraged in my home. So I actually wanted to be a plastic surgeon. It was you know what it was? I picked being a doctor, and then I decided, okay, if I'm going to be a doctor, what is the most artistic, creative way? So let me, fix people's faces. No, but you know what? I figured I'd be a maxillofacial surgeon, which is a surgeon that reconstructs. So it's not like a vanity sort of plastic surgeon. It's like helping people. But after, studying a little bit, and I actually shadowed a surgeon, and I was just like, no, I don't want to live this life. Like, so I decided that I was going to go into biotech and working in pharma for 6 or 7 years and hating it. I just decided to take a leap.
It's
Um,
funny you'd say that. It's funny you'd say that because when initially my parents wanted me to become a dentist, and I worked at a dental office, and I was like, watching staring on people's mouth is not for
right.
me.
Right.
Not for me, you know. So that took a curve. So it's interesting that you have that story, and that is actually the story for a lot of Caribbean, because I'm Caribbean. A lot of
Right.
Caribbean students, or a lot of Caribbean young people would say, "Hey, my parents would not um, even give me the two time a day if they heard I was going to do anything else, which wasn't a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer,
Right.
right?" And um, I remember when I told my dad that I was going to go to school to do aesthetics and then medical aesthetics. He goes, "What? You want to go and clean people's foot for the rest of your life?" Right? That's what he said, right?
Oh
That's what he
man.
said. He's like, the man didn't speak to me for 4 years. I kid you not, because he in his
Wow.
head, he's like, how could you be planning on cleaning people's foot? And he did not understand that, hey, it was a process. I wanted to do the aesthetics and I wanted to do the medical, and so they don't really get that. And
Right.
it's
They're from
very
a
old
different
fashioned, and it's
time, you
something
know?
that doesn't seem to want to change.
Right.
For you, you've experienced that, and we in the Caribbean have experienced. I want to know a little bit about your background, your family background.
In what sense? What do you want to know?
You know, like your mom, your parents, growing up. What was life like for you?
Well, we have a big family. It's I am the second oldest of five kids. So big family. I have an older brother, and then there's two boys after me, and then the youngest is a girl, my sister, who's actually traveling the world right now. It's super amazing. But yeah, growing up was we grew up very religious. So every morning my dad would ring this like massive bell, like at 7 a.m. in the morning, he would ring this bell to wake everybody up, and we would all come to the living room and we would all pray together. And you know what? It's funny because now I'm like a morning person. I cannot sleep past 5 o'clock. So I always wake up. Mind you, I don't have like PTSD from like ringing bells or anything,
Stop
but
the
I'm
nonsense.
a
You
complete
probably
morning
do.
person. And majority of my family actually are morning people, so that bell got us like up and early in the morning. But yeah, when we were younger, we big family. We get together now, and it's kind of like sometimes chaotic. It's probably like every other family, a little bit of craziness, a little bit of fun, But yeah, it I don't know. I had a really good upbringing. My mom is an amazing individual. And it's funny, even though my mom would always push us towards like, doctor, lawyer, engineer, those sort of things. My mom is completely artistic. So I'm not even sure why she didn't like we get most of our artistic. Now that I'm thinking about it, almost every single one of my siblings are in the arts now.
Wow.
Yeah, so they all started doing something else, and then they've all transitioned into doing the arts. So I think we get a lot of our artistic abilities from my mom, and yeah, they just couldn't. The upbringing and pushing us towards the academia didn't stick, I guess.
How important was it for you to obtain a university degree?
It was very important. You know what? It was very important um culturally. In my family, it was one of those things that is just like you have to do it. You know what I mean? For me, on a personal level, I didn't it wasn't so important to me because I was, as a kid, you just kind of do what your parents tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was important. Now that I look back, I see that it was extremely important for me, even though I studied biotechnology and it has nothing to do so much with what I do today. There are skills like analytical skills, and the way that I think is I can attribute to the fact that I had this that I had this education. You know what I mean? So I think in general, education is extremely important. even more so than education, I would probably say knowledge, because you can obtain knowledge, especially with the internet now. You can obtain all sorts of information and knowledge, and I think that's what's important, to know yourself and to know the world around you and how to navigate that. I think is extremely important.
Mm, that's awesome. You have your cocoa tea? You have your cocoa tea?
I have my tea. I have my tea.
Okay.
Yeah, our
Okay,
cup
good.
looks almost the same.
I know, right? I know. Yours is longer, mine's
Mine
short. You
is
know, I'm a
longer.
short
Yeah.
girl. So I'm a short girl. Why did you decide to actually become a designer? Because you could, having an artistic background and of course studying biotechnology, you could have said, okay, I've done what my parents wanted me to do, and now I'm going to walk my own path. Why did you specifically pick interior design? Because you could have said, I want to be the next Michelangelo, or I want to be, you could have picked
Right.
anything. You could have said, I want to be a makeup artist. I want to, so many different things. Why interior designing specifically?
You know what? I know this probably sounds really romantic and fluffy and all that sort of stuff, but I really believe that it chose me, like I before I started decorating or designing or anything like that, I would paint. That like it was kind of like my release. I would paint and I would sculpt, and all my electives in school, even though I was studying sciences, all my electives were art classes and artistic sort of classes. So those taught me a lot of the techniques, and I would do those things to kind of release stress or release anything that I felt. And when I bought my first place, my medium just changed. So my home became my canvas, and furniture and fabrics and paint um, became my brushes and things that I worked with. So it was just another way for me to release, another way for me to kind of express myself. And when other people saw and they asked me to do their own space, it actually was difficult at the beginning, only because the canvas now is their home. And it would become personal to me, like, well, this is my canvas, but no, it's not my canvas. It's theirs. It's their home. They have to live in it. Right. So it was difficult only because now I had to take this canvas that I saw as mine and, essentially translate what this person wants into their own home. So I had to detach from that canvas so that I can create something for this other person. But yeah, when I think back and I think about, how I kind of found myself in design, it kind of found me, and that's where I am today.
I really like that you said that, because I know sometimes people try to go into somebody's space, and let's say you're gonna fix it and you have your idea of how you want it to be, but you
Right,
have to also realize, hey, at the end of the day, you're not gonna live there. After they pay you your check, you're gone, and they have to sit and enjoy the space. It's almost like you
right,
have to get into the person's brain and
right,
see things how they want it to be. And it's funny because I share the similar sentiments or similar things with you, in the sense of designing. I cannot do graphic design work, but I can tell you when something, like, I can tell you exactly how I want it to look, and
right,
like get it into your head, and you can understand exactly what I. And sometimes my guys that work with me, they're always like, "How do you explain to us and we actually get it?" They always find it mind boggling how I do that. But it's an interesting thing to have, and it takes being creative to actually be able to get into somebody's mind and put their space how they want it to be,
right,
because they could
right.
absolutely hate it. Are you ever terrified that somebody's gonna say, I don't like that?
No, not so much. I mean, usually when I walk into people's spaces, it's pretty terrible to begin with. I know that's really wrong to say, but it's pretty bad to begin with. So anything really that I do would be better. No, but you know what? There's a process I guess I kind of go through. So once I've kind of met somebody and spent some time with them. I think when I first meet somebody or when I do my initial consultation, majority of the time is not spent talking about design. Actually, the majority of the time is spent me getting to know this person. And in me getting to know the person and having them walk me through their space and them telling me what they like and what they don't like and how they live like a day in the life of, I can kind of rearrange things in my head and remove things from the space. And kind of, by the time I've done that interaction with them, I pretty much know how the space looks, you know? So I'm not really afraid in terms of how it will look at the end, because I spend a good amount of time getting to know the individual. So I really know. And I mean, at the same time, there's always a back and forth. So it's never like I just say, okay, this is what you're getting and that's it, you know, and put my foot down. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times where I have to say no to people and be like, no, you're not keeping that ugly couch that's been here for 18 years, you know? And I got to put my foot down. But at the same time, there's times where I have to incorporate things that have sentimental value to people, or, you know, grandma's old, such and such. So at the end of the day, no, I'm never worried. And at the end, I most of the time become friends with my clients, you know?
Now, describe to me, because you've said, you know, you have to sort of spend some time with them. I want to know, when you do speak to somebody, what do you do? Do you go back and you draw up something and you say, that's what I'm going to offer you, that's what I'm going to show you? Does it naturally click and you say, oh, that's what I'm going to do, that's how I'm going to change this? Are you able to like communicate that with them right off the top of the bat?
You know what? It depends. Everybody's different. Sometimes you go in and you meet somebody and they know exactly what they like. They know their style. They know exactly what they like. And they might even like design and want to be part of the process. So in that case, it's more of a teamwork sort of effort. You go in, they know what they want, and they just need someone to kind of filter certain things through. But then you go and you meet people that don't know what they like. They don't know what their style is. They don't want anything to do with the process. And I actually, to be honest, I actually prefer working with those people, because essentially they just leave it up to you and you can just be creative. It's kind of like a blank canvas that you have your way with. So, but everybody's different. So there's no one formula. But I think the important part is getting to know who it is that I'm creating the space for. And once I understand who that person is, what their values are, how they're going to use the space, then everything else is easy. Everything else is just like painting, you know?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your store.
Oh,
I want to know all there is to know, because it's funny that in researching you, because again, we have not met, so all of my information is through research and stuff. You have a shoppable store. Explain to us what that is.
Okay, so my shop is called The Apartment. It's a pop-up shop, so it's not open all the time, but it's a pop-up shop called The Apartment. And The Apartment is a physical apartment, like a legit apartment, where everything from the furniture to the art on the walls, to the food in the fridge, to the clothes in the closet, to everything is purchasable. So you can go in and literally shop someone's lifestyle. So I create this space around a character. Sort of like I sit and I last season her name was Sloan, and she was a travel writer, and she had nephews and nieces, and it was during the Christmas season. So there was like a tree and she had gifts under there for her nephews and nieces, and you can kind of peel back the wrapping paper and see what she purchased for them, and you can purchase those items also. So I pretty much create a story around somebody, and in creating this story, to the point that I even listen to the type of music that I think this character would listen to, so that I can kind of really, you know, take on that form. And then I create this space. You can come in and literally go into her bathroom and buy her beauty products, or her closet and see what she's wearing, or the furniture and the art that she watches. The art that she has in her space. And it changes. So 4 times a year, I change the space. I get a new character, and I literally create a new space, and people can come and shop The Apartment.
Oh my God, that sounds so interesting.
It's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
It does. It does sound like a whole lot of fun. I heard somewhere that in your apartment, your frames have no pictures. What's up with that?
Oh, in my own apartment, my own personal apartment.
Yes.
Yeah, in my personal, I want to flip it around and show you guys, but in my home,
you can do that.
In my home, I'm afraid that it might be dirty, so I'm not gonna flip it around. But in my home, a lot of my frames are empty. I'm like looking around. Yeah, a lot of my frames are empty, and the reason being is that It depends. For me to put something, it's even funny. Even this piece of art behind me here, this will change. This will be this way for some time. And then when I get sick of it, I'll paint. Oops, I just dropped it. But this here, I'll paint over it if I get sick of it. So it's kind of like this thing where my home is kind of the place where I can be creative. Can you still see me?
I can still see you perfectly.
Okay. Just fixing that. There we go. My home is the place where I can release. And in order for me to be creative, in order for me to be inspired, sometimes I need quiet, and quiet also means visual quiet, which means empty spaces. When you have like a piece of paper and like half of it is colored, or you have like, maybe you have a coloring book and someone's colored half of it and you have this urge to like finish coloring the rest of it. It's almost like that, where you want to finish doing something. And in that process, you pull certain things out of you. So in me having unfinished pictures or empty frames in my home, it allows me to kind of continuously be creative and kind of continuously have this openness to whatever. Today in my head, that could possibly be a man sitting on a bench, or tomorrow can be a woman crying, or tomorrow can be, you know what I mean? So it allows me to continuously have my mind going, just to be creative.
Somebody might say crazy. Someone might think you sound crazy, but I totally get what you're saying. You like to keep things open for new ideas, and that's how new ideas are formed. And that's interesting, because after I heard that, I actually looked at a frame and I was like trying to like figure out like an empty frame. I'm like, where is she going with that? Where is she going?
The other thing, it's not just empty frames. I also have this thing with blank. So a lot of my house was white, but it's also a texture thing. So even though the frames are empty, they're not so much empty because the paper that I put in there has a certain texture to it. So one of them, it's like an all white piece of paper that has just these numbers, but you can't really see the numbers. And I also flip the numbers upside down, so you can't really tell they're numbers. You just see this texture on the paper that's kind of like, oh, that's a pretty cool textured white paper. It looks like a blank frame, but in actuality, if you go up close and you actually spend time with the paper or the frame, you'll see that there's much more to it. You know what I mean? So I like to layer things, and I like people to get personal. So it's not just empty frames, but you actually have to go in there and kind of be drawn in and kind of figure out the story about them.
You're saying all of this, and all I can hear, it's almost like it's like getting to know somebody, because a lot of times you just look at that person and you're like, oh, she's this and she's that. She looks like this. But then when you really get to talk to the person, spend some time with the person, fill the person up a bit,
right.
And then you really get the true sense of who that individual is actually. And I can really definitely appreciate that. Now, I want to touch into a little bit on you getting into the art form and why you decided that, hey, after doing my blog, I'm going to run with this. I think it's something that people are interested in, because that's exactly what you did. You said bye-bye to pharmaceuticals and hello to interior designing. And so far, you've made quite a name for yourself here in Toronto, here in Canada, as a matter of fact, right? So why did you decide that to pretty much, I'm going to defy all odds and I'm going to go for this?
Why did I decide?
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things that it wasn't. I'm really about energy. And for me, it was one of those things that I didn't have a choice. When you're gifted with something like an idea, or it wasn't so much an idea as it was an energy or something, a calling. That's probably a better word. When you're gifted with some sort of a calling and it's pulling at you and it's pulling at you, when something pulls at you so much, it wears you out if you don't go. So it wasn't so much that I needed to go, because I had no other option but to give in to this calling of what I was, So I was in pharma, and to be honest, I also wasn't happy doing what I was doing. I remember I woke up one morning and I was looking in the mirror, getting ready for work. This is when I was still working in a pharmaceutical company. and I looked at myself, you know, it almost felt like I had like a flashback of like, you know, going to university and studying and doing all these things. And I looked at myself and I thought, is this going to be the rest of my life? You know, like, is this it? Is this the story? I'm like, no, this cannot be the rest of my life. So I think that was the moment. And I think even the week before that, I had heard this quote from Steve Jobs. I can't remember verbatim what it was, but it was along the lines of, if you wake up too many days or you look yourself in the mirror and you're not doing what you want to do, essentially, I'm totally botching it. I'm totally like not
But
doing it
I get what
justice.
you're
But
saying.
essentially, what he's saying is that if you wake up in too many mornings not happy in your skin and what you're doing, then stop doing that. You know. So that was pretty much after hearing that and then feeling what I was feeling. It was almost like, okay, it's now we need to make a change. You know, and it wasn't like it was clear to me in what direction. You know, you kind of just follow and you kind of do things. Things are unclear, but I had this blog, a friend, actually it wasn't a friend, it was my mentor at the time. He had encouraged me because I'm really private, or at least I used to be. I'm not sure with social media now if I can really call myself that private, but um, at that time I was extremely private. It was weird for the thought of me sharing pictures of my home on internet was just like weird. So he almost forced me to, you know, create this blog. And I created this blog and I was doing all these, you know, DIY things and transforming my home, and people received it really well. Um, and I think from that,
Tell us some
uh,
of the stuff you did. You did.
it was more, I loved working with my hands. I loved working with my hands. So I'd go out and buy old furniture. Like I bought a dresser and I turned it into a bar. Or I'll buy, like, you know, I like to change things around. So I remember I bought these old movie movie theater seats from this old theater, and I refurbished them, and they actually ended up being in an art festival. But things like that, like buying old furniture and refurbishing them and changing them and making them look nicer than what they were before. And then I would, you know, pretty much post that. They were all kind of like these affordable ways to kind of make your house look great. And one of the things I love to do was love going to um, stores, like retail stores. And when their
Really?
displays are, you know, when you have the old displays, they have so many fabulous things. They have these like beautiful, I don't know, it really depends on what the display is, but you can really find these like really affordable, interesting, weird things that you can use for other purposes. Like, I mean, I want to kind of show you. I have this table beside me that says boots, and there's another one over there that says standard, or one, like they're all these black boxes with these white lettering on them, and they were from the Gap. They're all describing different types of jeans. One says slim fit, but they're really cool looking, so I use them as my side tables. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like just getting these, like it's just like finding really interesting things and just finding different ways to use them. So yeah,
So you literally use everything around you to inspire you.
yeah, you know, you go somewhere, and that's one of the things. When I need inspiration, I absolutely love going and walking through the mall and looking at window displays. Window displays are phenomenal because they have to capture you in seconds. You know what I mean? So you're walking by a window and you're in a mall where there's so many windows, and you have to be able to engage and interact with the window display within seconds, and it has to tell a story in seconds. So it's the same thing when you walk into someone's house. You create a story of that person, and you want people to be able to get that in a second. Like you walk in, like, oh yeah, this looks like you. You know what I mean? So window displays, I love. They have big impact, and they really tell a story very quickly. And I try to recreate that when I create people's spaces.
Wow, this is so amazing. I love the way you explain everything and the way you express, how it's like getting into your head almost, Um, Tell me a little bit about where you were born. I want to kind of go back a little bit. Where you were born and you as a child. I want to know about you, not as an adult. I want to know about
Oh
Nikki as a
gosh. Well, I was born in Toronto, so I was born in Toronto. We moved around a lot. And I was extremely shy. Like, I was so quiet and I was so shy to the point that my mom bought me this book that said, "Today I feel shy." And I had to read this book so that I would
Not be
learn
shy.
how to, learn how to talk and interact with people. I was so afraid. I was so scared to talk. You know what? Actually, when I think about it, I actually don't think I was afraid. I just didn't have anything to say to people. I didn't have anything to say. And I would observe and yeah, I just wasn't, not that I wasn't interested in talking to people. I didn't have anything to say. I'm sure if I had something to say, I would say it to them. But I after reading that book though, and your parents, like they get worried, so they do these things. So I started thinking, oh, is there something wrong with me? Like, should I be talking more? So I learned. I became I'm an introvert. I'm still an introvert today, actually, but I'm a learned extrovert. So I can interact with people. I can, for the purposes of whatever, I can be animated, especially when I'm around my girlfriends. Then it's like they're probably like, shut up, keep it quiet, because I'm really like animated and I love telling stories. But I really need my downtime. Yeah, but anyways, as a kid, I was really studious. I was oh boy, man. I wish I could talk to my younger self and tell her to just chill out. Chill out. All I did was study. I wanted to be a doctor, so all I did was study all the time. I didn't go to prom. And in university, it was like I hated university because literally all I did was study. I would take my books to the bathroom and just sit and study all the time. So yeah,
What was your interaction like with your siblings? Because you again come from a.
I locked myself in my room and I just studied. Like you know what? Let me think about that. Yeah, most of the time I was in my room doing my own thing. Like I was in my own universe. I really was in my own universe when I was around. My house was loud. There's 5 of us, and everybody's needs some sort of attention. You have one TV and 5 kids. It's kind of like either you're fighting over TV or you're fighting over something. Or I was in my own world, so I went into my room and I created stuff in my mind and did stuff in my mind or studied. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I had a good relationship with all my siblings except for my brother that comes right after me. Me and him fought all the time, and I don't even know why. Like I'm thinking back and trying to figure out. And now we're actually quite close, which is really strange. He just had a kid, and right after him having a daughter, we became really close, which was very strange to me. Very strange.
Really?
Yeah, but yeah, I'm pretty close with all my siblings. I have different relationships with each of them. But yeah, we're all pretty close.
How about your parents?
I'm close to my mom. I'm not so close to my dad, but I'm really close to my mom. My mom is just such an incredible woman. She is so strong. And I think, most of what I am today is because of her. You know, the fact that I'm independent, the fact that I'm strong, the fact that I'm creative. There's a lot of things that I've been able to soak up from her. It's like a sponge, you just beside somebody and you just soak up their essence. And that's with my mom. I just soak up her essence. She's just an incredible woman. My dad was the entrepreneurial type. So I think I probably get a lot of those aspects from him. Not so close with my dad, although I am grateful for a lot of the things that he instilled. He used to he went to school. They had one of these like army type of elementary schools. I don't even know if he was in the army or something like that.
Oh,
but
he was hardcore.
Yeah. So my dad is one of those people is like, you gotta, if you pick up a pen from this location, make sure that the pen is back in this location. It's like, if it's over here, it's like, well, did you pick it up from over here? No, over here. So he was very like, regimented. And, he's the type of person that had the crease in the pants, when they iron the pants and they have that.
My dad too.
So my dad is, so I think a lot of the way that my house is, with everything having a place, from my dad, a lot of these like, very stern things that I kind of follow, I think I've gotten from my father, but we're not too close actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similar sentiments.
I
It was
actually
the
wish
same.
I did have a better relationship with my father. I think there's a lot of things, and it's strange because before growing up, I thought, oh, I don't need him. I've grown up and I'm strong on my own, especially after having a mom like my mom. You know, my mom is very strong, so I figured, hey, I'm just strong. But now as I'm growing, and I guess even becoming softer, I realize, you know, I wish I had I wish I would have had that softness. You know, how do I say this? I wish I would have had that soft place to land that a father kind of provides for a daughter. You know what I mean? Um, I find those things now with my brothers. I try to, you know, if I need some softness, I'll go with my older brother or even my younger brothers. There's sometimes that I just like I need some soft, I need to break down or need to some cushion and I'll find that in them. But it would have been interesting to see who I would have been if I had that from my dad, you know?
I like the fact that you say that. Well, I think I mentioned to you in speaking that I lost my both parents, but I was very, very close to my mom and not so close with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I like you. I was like a sponge. I picked up everything from my mom. I worshipped her. She was my everything, right? She was my best friend. I remember my cousins and friends being jealous of our relationship because we were like sisters. You know, it
Right.
was three. It was two peas in a pot for years. People thought I was an only child because my mom, and I were always so, always so close. My dad, on the other hand, we did not have that close relationship at all. And I remember my father believed in spare the rod, spoil the child. That was him,
Right.
but one of the strong things about him was that he always told us we need to row our own boats. And I never really got it until I became an adult as to what he meant by row your own boat. And I got that he was pretty much he wanted us, his girls, to be independent. He did not want us to be dependent on anyone, and that is something that I appreciate him for today. But going back to as a child, I remember, doing something and getting scolded for it. And I'd go back to him and say, I'm sorry. And he'd look at me like, with like, no, like, oh, come and hug your, like nothing. It's like
Right.
I'm now I can say, like, dude, like hug me. I was like, I'm genuinely
Right.
sorry.
Right.
But he was just this hardcore, like I am not going to break, and his face is still stern, like he's still mad at me and what I did, and even after I've been scolded, I've been punished, and I am genuinely sorry. So I kind of get where you're coming from, and what your relationship in relationship to your dad. But if your dad was to be looking at this show right now or probably listening, what would you say to him?
Oh, I couldn't even say there's too much to say and it would definitely take longer than an hour. Um yeah, that is yeah, there's no way that I couldn't even sum it up in yeah, it's not even possible. You know what, actually, I would just say thank you. It's funny because even though there was I think there was a not I think there was a lot of anger before for him not being around and missing a lot of things and um not giving my mom that support that she needed because just 5 kids is a lot of kids, you know. But I think what I would say to him is thank you. You know, I this year I went, sorry, not this year. At the end of last year, I went back to Nigeria, and this is the first time I went back to Nigeria as an adult. I was born in Canada, my family's from Nigeria, and I've been wanting to go for a very long time. I finally got to go last year, and you know, going there and seeing where my family's from and seeing how people live there and what it's like and experiencing that and even meeting my cousins. I met a lot of my cousins for the first time. Um, and essentially, when I was there, I saw, and it was a little bit strange because it was the first time that I was seeing people that look like me outside of my immediate family. You know what I mean? So literally, it was like, wow, you look around and you see extreme wealth, you see extreme poverty, and you're like, you know what? This could have been my life. This could have been my life. And I was grateful because my dad worked hard to get to Canada. He worked hard to go to school, even though there was a lot of racism in his school, and he worked hard to bring my mom here. And you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of things that he did that solidified and who I am today. You know what I mean? So even though he wasn't present, and even though there was a lot of anger with him leaving during the times where I felt I needed him the most and all these sort of things, when I went back and I looked, I'm like, you know what? There needs to be gratitude there also. Because there, you know, and as a child, I had a father. As a child, he was a good father too, you know. So to have known that, I think also is something that I should be grateful for. So there, even though there's a lot of wishes and there's a lot of I wish this and that, I also would just say thank you. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like it's either I can't go back, I can't change anything. I just you you tell yourself whatever story you need to tell yourself, and then you move on, which is why I would say thank you.
I think that is a perfect thing to say. I think that is my opinion. Um, Being grateful is always it means a lot, and it helps you to move on.
Right.
You know, like just showing gratitude, just saying, you know what, and it's a sign of forgiveness as well, because if you can
Right.
say thank you, it means whatever was wrong, I've forgiven you and I've moved on,
Right.
and it made me better. um and that's it is what it is. We were getting some interaction from a few folks. Madeline is saying I can relate to the different relationships with mom and dad, and a few other folks are also saying hi, and they're waving out to us. If you were to describe yourself, Nikki, in one sentence, what would you say?
In one sentence, girl, I can never do these things. I can never do these one sentence things. I'm too, you can even tell in my responses, they're always so
I'm too
long-winded
complex.
and complete. Like, I'm always like, oh, what is it? I have to dig down into the essence of things. Like, so how could I describe myself in one sentence? I'm water.
Hmm.
I'm water. That's pretty much what I can. I'm water because I'm fluid and I can fit into different things and I can adapt and I can freeze. I can warm up. I can boil. You know, like water is so dynamic. So I can't sum myself up in one word. It's such an artistic answer. You know, it's like.
You're definitely an Aquarian. Okay,
Like, I
okay,
mean,
water.
I can't. That's the best way for me to describe myself because I can't describe myself just the same way that you can't describe water. You can't say water is a liquid because sometimes water is not a liquid. Sometimes it's a solid, and sometimes it's a gas. So that's what I am. Sometimes I'm a lot of different things. So yeah, that I am water.
Now, as a Black designer, do you ever face challenges, or what sort of challenges do you face as a Black designer and being woman?
Um, as a designer, I wouldn't say I face challenges as a designer. When I guess the same way that I think about my canvas and putting things on my canvas is the same way that I approach design. So I don't face challenges as a designer because it's my process, and you know what I mean. It's me getting to know somebody and creating a space for them. So it's not so much that I face a challenge as a designer. Maybe as a businesswoman or as an entrepreneur, there might be some challenges in terms of people. I mean, and I also look quite young. So, and I mean, I looked younger 9 years ago when I started this. You know what I mean? I also was
Wow.
inexperienced. I didn't know about much about design. So I guess it would probably be more difficult for people to take me seriously. And, you know, they see this young Black woman and they're probably thinking she looks like a kid and not taking me seriously. So I don't think so much that there was a lot of, I don't, oh, sorry. Um, yeah, so I mean, I can't don't have examples of write out um, challenges in terms of me being Black or anything like that. But one thing that I do find that, excuse me, one thing that was difficult to a certain degree was the fact that there's not many of us. You know, it's the representation and not seeing. You know, a lot of times when you don't see things, you don't know that it's possible. You know, so I think maybe more so the representation. Um, but even still, even with that, it wasn't too difficult to be honest with you because I literally was in my own world. It's like when I get fixated, when I kind of put my mind on something, I focus more on the path than I do the obstacles. I don't see the obstacles ahead until I get to them. And once I get to them, then I'm just like, okay, now what do I do to get past that? You know what I mean? So it's not so much, it wasn't so difficult outside of people not taking me seriously, I guess, because I was young looking and, you know, they probably just thought, oh, what's this girl doing? You know, like they didn't really understand. But other than that, there's everyday entrepreneurial struggles as opposed to race focused struggles, you know?
Okay.
I guess the only thing that I would say now that I'm more visible in the public is probably just the weight, and I think it's probably the weight I put on myself of representing our community. You know, because now people will be like, oh, that Black designer, you know, like that sort of thing. It's like, because there's not a lot of us. So they recognize me. It's like, oh, yeah, that Black designer. It's like, no,
That's
I'm
exactly
Nikki.
what somebody
Right.
said when I told them that you were going to be on the show. Oh, that Black, exactly that.
Right. So it's like, so it's probably for me, it's more just representing my community that probably is more pressured now that I'm only in the public eye. But again, that's more pressure that I put on myself than any other person putting on me. Yeah.
You mentioned being out there in the public eye and stuff. As an introvert, as you rightfully said, how does that affect you? Because now you are in front
Boy.
of not hundreds, but millions of people, because the population of Canada is over 30 million people. and you are aware that the show that you appear on City Line quite often, that the viewership is massive.
Absolutely.
How do you feel when you now have to sit in front of all these people and give, be DIY tips, be it design ideas, be it makeovers? How do you feel at that time?
Surprisingly, it's not any different. Like whether I'm sitting in front of a camera in a studio and we have one viewer, or if we have 20 million, because now City Line is in the United States. We just got syndicated last September. So I think we're something at like 20 million or something like that. But if I'm sitting in front of a camera and there's one person watching or 20 million people watching, that doesn't register to me because I'm just in front of one camera and a studio audience, right? So it's not so difficult in that sense in terms of the numbers. But I did find that when I launched my shop, so when I launched my shop, that was the time when I left my job. I actually, before I left Pharma, I went to work at a design firm. And I actually wasn't doing design at that design firm. I was doing admin. But being in that environment and that's a story in itself. That was a difficult year for me, extremely, one of the most difficult years of my life, leaving my Pharma job where I was getting paid, had a company car flying and going to conferences, and now coming to work and taking a pay cut, coming into an industry where nobody knew who I was or cared, and doing administration when I wanted to do design and learn and be creative. And that year was a very difficult year, but it was one of these years where I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump into this industry, and I'm going to work for one of the best design firms in Canada and learn and see where that takes me. Anyways, that's not the question, but so when I left working at that design firm and I launched the apartment, I thought that it was going to be something that it was almost like this. I had this idea that I like to say gifted, but I had this idea that God had gifted to me about the apartment. And I figured, you know what, I was going to start small and see where this leads to. So when I launched the apartment, it blew up so quickly that I literally had to run after it for 2 years, because the way that the media and the public received it was so great that I didn't anticipate that. I was not expecting it. And I think that was difficult for me, because as an artist, you know, you sit and you kind of create this thing. And then once you go into your little shell, you create something, you perfect it, you make sure it's perfect, and then you put it out there for people to see, right? then you step back and you watch people look at the masterpiece you've created, or you hope is a masterpiece you created. And
also the reactions.
right. So if it's a piece, if you're painting something, you paint it, you leave it there, and you watch people enjoy it. But with the apartment, people would do that. But then all of a sudden, people became interested in me, which was very strange because I wasn't, I didn't anticipate or expect or even want people to be interested in me. I wanted people to interact with the apartment. So that was difficult. All of a sudden, all these eyes were here. And like this, I was interesting, and I was all these things that people wanted to know about me or know me. And I was just kind of like, I was interesting last week when nobody knew who I was, but now all of a sudden everybody wants to know. So that was difficult for me. It was very draining, and it was scary. So after all of a sudden you have something that you wanted, of course you launched something, you want it to be successful, and it was more successful than I could have even imagined. But the reaction that it caused in me was it was the opposite reaction from what other people would think. You would think after you get all these, your dreams granted, that you would be ecstatic and happy and, but my reaction to it was not that I wasn't happy. I was 100% happy and grateful, but there was a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of expectation, I think, that I had put on myself. There was a lot of eyes, and to an introvert who literally there was a lot of conversation, people wanting to talk and do interviews and all these things that I was not ready for. I had no clue. Yeah, people ask me questions, what's your process? And I'm just like, I have no clue what my process is. I go into my room and I create what I want to create, so it was a very difficult time to kind of go through and navigate. And I actually, instead of doing you have all these wonderful things happening, you would expect someone to do this and open up. I did this and close, because it was like all these things coming at so quickly, too fast. And I was just like, okay, yeah, this is way too much. And I kind of built a wall to protect myself from everything. So it was a very strange reaction to that whole experience. But I think now that was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Now, when it comes to eyes or as an introvert, how I deal with that sort of thing, I think with me, there is a few things that I tell myself to kind of deal with that. One thing is that a lot of it is not about me, when I'm out there creating and doing certain things, whether it's giving design tips to people, or just being present as a woman of color, visible on television or wherever someone's to see me, and having a child that is an artistic person that was like me when I was a kid, and to say, oh my gosh, I can do that. I can be like her, So when I kind of take myself out of the equation and think about how this is helping people, I'm not thinking about 20,000. I'm just thinking about that one person and connecting with that one person. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really affect me so much now. I mean, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with social media. So even that in itself, again, when I take myself outside of the equation and I say, you know what, this is about me, the same conversation is about me connecting with that one person, or helping that one person with whatever advice I'm giving, or whatever design, whatever it is that I'm talking about at that particular time, but connecting with that one person, even though I don't see them or talk to them. But if I can make that impact in one person, then it's worth it. I guess it's not about me, is what I tell myself.
Yeah. Oh, good answer. Joy Campbell says you've come a long way. So proud of you. We're about to wrap up the show, and if you have any questions, guys, feel free to send it out now. Let us know so Nikki can interact with you. I have actually one more question for her, really, and I really want to know what does the future hold for you?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I've been working on with 800 square feet. Nothing that I want to divulge yet, but essentially I'm looking
Your
to
secretive
expand.
designers.
I'm looking to expand in some creative ways, work on some interesting projects. So there's some interesting things in the work. So just kind of stay tuned. I'd say that.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes.
Nikki's information is above. So if you click on just above the link, you should see her social media handles. You could follow her on Facebook, on Instagram, both at her business Instagram as well as her regular her name,
Personal
Nikki,
one, yes.
personal Instagram. Jeez, I'm getting tongue tied. But you can definitely follow her and she's always open for business, right?
Yes.
She's always open for business, and I wanna say how grateful I am that you came on and spoke with me. I am absolutely thankful that you actually responded to my Facebook message, and I got to interact with you and got to bring you on the show. And I see so many similarities in you, and with me. I don't know if it's because we're Aquarians, because Aquarians tend to be very, very similar.
Right.
And it's strange. I think it's probably the one sign where all Aquarians get along. All Aquarians cannot be with each other. So don't date an Aquarian. It's not gonna work. But we always get along. It's almost like a love-hate relationship.
Love relationship.
Yes, I know. We might fight. Like I have this one Aquarian friend. Like we fight like dogs. Like I kid you not. Like I will like say exactly what is on my mind with no filter. And after I kind of feel bad, but there's no hard feelings. It's like
right.
It's like I
can
get the
definitely
message.
relate to that because I'm extremely blunt, and I sometimes I ask my family. I don't have a filter. Ask my friends. I don't have a filter, but I actually like the fact that I don't have a filter. So whatever I give you, you know that's what you get. Right.
Exactly. There's no hiding, and a lot of Aquarians are like that. I remember my neighbor growing up was an Aquarian, and I only found out closer to her death that she was an Aquarian, and she always liked me, and nobody could understand why she liked me because she was always mean to everybody else, their kids. Like no, she had lots of guava trees and mango trees in the yard, and nobody could climb the tree, but I was allowed to climb the tree. Like nobody gets on my tree, but if I climb the tree, there was no noise, nothing. She'd make noise on everybody else. And it's later on, in life, we realized that it's because we shared the same sign, and we got along so well. But thank you so very much, Nikki, for taking the time on your Sunday afternoon to be here with us. I really wish you all the best. Once I am up and running, when I say up and running in terms of walking, I will definitely be stopping off at your next pop-up shop because I definitely want to check that out. Having a 4-month-old is keeps me indoors more than outdoors. But once I get the hang of things, I will definitely be checking you out. And I want to encourage those of you who actually tuned in, if you're ever in the area or, just follow her on social media. I'm sure she'll let you know, even though she has a love-hate relationship with social media, she'll let you know when stuff's popping, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Don't forget, guys, you can listen to this interview again on the podcast. It will be aired or it will be uploaded in 24 hours. That is on my website. That's jaeljoseph.com/plog, as in plug, as in a podcast log. So you can definitely go on there, subscribe, so we let you know when new shows are coming up and when new guests are going to be on. It's also available on iTunes. So if you'd like to go back to iTunes in 24 hours, it will be available for you to listen. You can listen in your car, you can listen in your apartment, you can listen in your space. Thanks again to the beautiful Nikki for being here with us. I want to wish you all the best, Nikki. Nothing but the best, limitless skies. I believe in that a lot. and you're definitely doing what you love, and you're definitely giving it your all. I mean, it's very obvious watching your interviews and researching you a bit, and I want to just wish you guidance.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out on Facebook and contacting me. This was absolutely fun. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, and take care, and happy Sunday, everyone. Keep on drinking your Cacoa tea. Don't forget, whenever you're feeling cold, you can drink a little Cacoa tea. It warms the heart a little bit. If you're feeling hot, still drink some Cacoa tea because you sweat it right out. You'll sweat it right out. Thanks again, guys. Until next time, have a happy week. And don't forget, guys, next week we're doing hot topics. So we're going to be talking about autism and text and tone. So stay tuned. Thanks, Nikki.
Bye. Guys.